Gentlemen, welcome here to race number 17 of the Soda Guys Cup Series as we get ready for 160 laps here this evening at Chicagoland Speedway. We saw the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series last night for 150 laps. A little bit longer here, 10 laps here for the Cup Series drivers. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, just based on what we saw in practice, are we going to see a little bit of deja vu from last night, or are these Cup cars going to handle a little bit differently?
In some fashions, it's going to be deja vu, and others, it's going to be slightly different. I feel like we're going to be seeing a lot more of close action up for first place, but from everywhere else, we might see cars getting split up a lot more because these paces that these drivers are running a lot different than it was last night. Last night, these guys are a lot closer in speed.
Of course, if we're basing a lot of stuff off last night as well, these drivers have to be prepared to have their car set up for the long run. We had a few cautions. I think we had 3 cautions in the first half of last night's race, but then after that, we were clean and green for the remainder of that event, and we really saw that the drivers with the long run speed, they were the ones that gained the most ground.
Yeah, I mean, you always got to be prepared for that long run to come out. It might last for at least maybe only one stint of tires, and other times you can go multiple times under green here for green flag pit stops. But with Chicagoland, it's really known for those fuel strategy finishes. I wonder if we're going to be seeing that here tonight. We saw a little bit of that last night. Let's see if it continues here today.
Well, in the last 2 weeks, we have had drivers go to victory lane for the first time in their Soda Guy Cup Series careers. Ty McWhirter taking the checkered flag 2 weeks ago at Michigan. Last week, Caden Rush going coast-to-coast pole to win at the road course of Sonoma. Well, we might go 3 for 3 as Chad Gunnisman laid down the fastest lap in qualifying. He is still looking for his first trip to victory lane, starting alongside of his teammate and 5-time winner this season, Boyd Hogan. The Penske car is bringing a lot of speed here in qualifying. The question is, though, is that going to translate to long-run speed or just short-run speed?
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult for us to say if Boyd Hogan has that long run speed. We didn't see him during practice at all, so we don't know what type of tire drop off he's going to have. But that 22 car in the pole, it's going to be a fun one to see if he can finally get that first one of the day. A car I've got my eye on, though, has got to be that 95 machine of Tyler Sifford. He's always up there in the top 3 battling for the lead.
And Sifford, in that 95 machine, qualified in the 4th position. Alongside of him is Dustin Hall. Dustin, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I want to say it was at Kansas. He qualified in the 2nd position in that race. Did not finish well, though, as he was caught up in an early incident. So we know that 6 car has got great qualifying speed. We'll see if finally this week it will translate into getting him his 2nd top 5 finish of the season. Another driver that's in the field that we haven't seen since we started broadcasting. He made his last start, I believe it was before the All-Star race back at Martinsville, and that is the number 18 former winner in Caudle, who is currently, I believe, 14th in points. Green flag is in the air, though. 160 laps here tonight at Chicagoland.
And it's going to be the Penske cars leading side by side, and I think we're going to be seeing the 22 car pulling away here at the start, but it's going to be extremely hard for these cars to completely pull away from one another. We saw that last night. The draft was very important, and it's going to continue as the 22 car really defending that bottom side.
Absolutely. It was hard to tell if he got loose off of 2 or if he just was...
Oh, no!
And Zach York further back. He's going to get spun. Somebody spun behind him as well.
Sifford.
21, and a lot of cars involved.
21 involved, the 10 involved, the 95. It looks like the 88 as well. His engine's blown. I was just about to say first lap. We've been seeing not a lot of these guys at the ovals. First lap, there seems to be someone gets loose or an incident happens, and usually the big one happens right at the start.
And last night, lap 1 was when our first caution came out in the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series, and at least 5, maybe 6 cars collected up in this one. And you talked about Tyler Sifford qualified tonight on the outside of row 2. His day may be over already. James Love in the 88 is now pulled into the attention of his crew. They are on the clock as they're trying to get his Chevrolet Camaro repaired. Boy, you just hate to see, because when you know that you're getting prepared for a 160 lapper, to see drivers with damage that more than likely is going to take them out of this race after the first lap hasn't even been completed, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about the Hendrick guys, the fact that they didn't qualify, but every single one of them, I believe, was caught up in that accident at some point. So, and the Hendrick machines already starting on the off.
There was a car that I saw that got into the back of Zach York when he got out of shape. I'm assuming it might have been the 95 of Tyler Sifford. We'll see it here on the replay going into turn 3. Oh, Sifford was the first car to get out of shape, actually. Came down into the passenger side of the 19 of Zach York. That's why I saw him sideways. And then the track just blocked up from there.
Yeah, it really did lock up, and you hate to see this kind of contact on such an early start for these guys, but it kind of happens sometimes for these guys, and it's a shame to see.
Take a look here again at the replay and see how the 88 of James Love got involved. You mentioned the other Hendrick cars as well. Joseph Piscota, Vincent Arthur. Let's see. Yeah, you can see right there is Piscota kind of slid down in front of his teammate Chris Hansen in the 20. That bright green Interstate Batteries Toyota was able to get to the inside and avoid. 21 of Justin Carey also got involved. I'm not sure if he got contact or if he just slid trying to avoid the wreck. We'll take an onboard with him and find out.
Also, had other cars involved. You had the 11 of Tyler Butcher Benjamin, as well as the 32. These guys, almost half of these cars, all involved in this early accident.
Big reason for it is because that happened right up at the front of the field. That was a side-by-side battle, I think, for the 4th position that went horribly wrong. And when you had both the 19 and the 95 getting out of shape, that not only blocked up the outside, but also the inside lane.
The car that luckily slowed down, was not involved in that thing, is the 77 of Ryan Shrunk. And man, that was a close one for the 77. It will slow down and let all the chaos wreck.
Yeah, Ryan Strunk, who a couple of weeks ago was the points leader, has recently now dropped down to 5th in the points. We haven't seen him in that number 77, I think, since might have been Charlotte. Because it was Charlotte, because the last couple of weeks we've been seeing Rapid Fire Pizza National Series driver Greg Newsom doing the fill-in duties at both Michigan and Sonoma. So Strunk has fallen down in the point standings. Currently, as far as the playoffs are considered, he's currently down in the 10th slot. When we started broadcasting back at Charlotte, he was actually the points leader. So dropping down a little bit there, trying to recover here today. And as you mentioned, getting through that wreck. But there are a number of drivers that are still on pit road, getting damage repaired. Spencer Tartan, the 10, is in pit lane right now. The 11 of Taylor Butcher Benjamin is on pit road. About a minute in damage repair was done on the 9 of Joseph Piscota. And right now, the 47 of Oscar Jensen is on pit road. I don't see any visible damage on his JTG Daughtery Racing Camaro, but I'm not sure if this is a regularly scheduled stop or not, because this seems to be taking a little bit of extra time as opposed to if it was just a regular 4-tire pit stop.
95 machine of Tyler Sifford has taken his car behind the wall. It's our first car to do so. But man, that's a lot of cars, a lot of damage. But honestly, our top 3 looking the same. John Cottle now up in 4th, and he's someone who was running in the top 3 and based off of time when practice was going on. So that 18 machine, someone to watch out for.
That's a tough break there for Tyler Sifford. He's had some good luck and some bad luck at the speedways. He ended up finishing in the top 5 back-to-back weeks at Charlotte and Kansas, but then 2 weeks ago at Michigan suffered a DNF, finishing down in the 17th position, and here today suffers another DNF, finishing in 19th. Sifford, at this point in time, is almost getting into the category of having to win his way into the playoffs because he's only made a limited number of starts this season, and currently finds himself tonight coming into this race about 151 points behind the 16th in the standings cut line, right now held by the 47 of Oscar Jensen. Looks like we're doubling up. We're going to be going green momentarily here. It was an all Ford front row for the drop of the green. Blue ovals out in front again. Pole sitter Gunisman, this time Dustin Hall to the outside with Boyd Hogan, John Cottle, and Carl Dodson. That's going to be your top 5 with Larry Reed, Ty McWhirter, Zach York, Ryan Strunk, and Ty Cole completing the top 10. Really, the top 10 are the drivers that didn't get damage in any way, shape, or form from that last caution.
I would say that's the top 6 that really didn't get any damage. It was 7th on back. All those drivers came into the pits, either get a splash of fuel or repairs done on their car. So You got to be careful with these machines, and with these early cautions, you got to be aware that you only got 5 sets of tires, so don't overuse all sets that you have today.
First, these drivers having to deal with cold tires on the initial start of this race. That may have led to why Tyler Sifford got out of shape in turn 3. Running here under pacing, these drivers at about 65 miles per hour. Their tires will have cooled down yet again, so they're going to have to be careful. The tires may be slick one more time here as we go back green on lap 7.
And 22 of Chad Gunsman is going to be continuing on leading the pack, and looks like Boyd Hogan did not get going. Communication was not there. So 2-car just fades on back, and he's going to lose 2 positions.
Dustin Hall pulling down as close as he can to the right rear quarter panel of Gunisman's 22, trying to pull him back and get maybe a bit of a toe here, side draft down the back straightaway. They might be dead even by the time they get to 3. A little bit higher entry there for Dustin Hall is going to give Gunisman the lead.
Hall gets loose.
18 is going to spin in front of the 2, and it's going to be another caution, I think. No, they saved it somehow.
Boyd Hogan's going to get extremely loose now, running through the grass. No caution, but man, another time of in 3 getting loose, and oh no, the 14 around.
Earl Dodson gonna spin it down to the apron, and a little hit there afterwards from Vincent Arthur in the 24. The 11 of Taylor Butcher Benjamin scattering to the infield grass.
The 24 of Arthur. It looked like that time it started again with the 18 machine getting loose. Once again, he was loose in 3 and 4 and loose again in 1 and 2.
While we were focusing on all that going on, Dustin Hall got around Chad Gunisman, is the race leader here under the second caution of the day. Let's go back and try and figure out everything that happened there from turn 4 all the way over into turn 1.
Oh, so turn 1, it looked like Caudle came up into Reed, started all of that.
I'm going to go back and look at the save here by both Caudle and Boyd Hogan exiting out of turn 4, and then we'll look at the turn 1 incident. One thing we have to remember too is a driver last night got parked for bringing out a caution. Some of these drivers with these early yellows, they got to be careful that they don't get themselves disqualified from this race early on.
And John Caudle, just as you said it, he was parked right then and there. That car was extremely loose, and you saw it 2 corners in a row, and the admin decided it was unsafe to continue to have that machine out there on track.
John Caudle, a 2-time winner this season. As we mentioned, we hadn't seen him for quite a while. His last start back at Martinsville, that was about 5-6 weeks ago. And it looks like his day here at Chicagoland is going to come to an early end. We're going to follow the 18's adventures all the way from turns 3 and 4 over to 1 and 2. He's that bright pink car on the outside line there. You see the rear end slide. He traverses down into the lane that Boyd Hogan's in. That's why we saw Hogan in the grass. I'm actually shocked the 18 didn't go around off the nose of the 2 at that point. Keeps it going here, and to your point, oh wow, just completely ran. Couldn't tell who that was up into the wall.
I first said that it was Reed. I misspoke. It was Ty Cole that was forced into the wall there.
A couple other drivers collected up in that. We mentioned Vincent Arthur in the 24, also the 47 of Oscar Jensen getting some contact, and we'll actually go back and see because I believe Carl Dodson was the one that got hit by the 24 car there over in turns 1 and 2. And we've got more drivers on pit road getting damage repaired, including that 14, the 47, the 34, the 24, all back on pit road. And this is, for some of them, their second time on pit road for damage repair.
Yeah, we're seeing the 11th. Now we're seeing Carl Dodson back on the track as well as others. So cars are still able to get on track. And Spencer Tart, he got that car. He was in the pits for almost 9. But now that 10 machine back out there could get a couple of laps done and pass John Caudle to get at least 1 position here.
See right there, Vincent Arthur hard hitting the outside wall. The whole front end of his car torn up. And it looked like it was Carl Dodson getting in the back of Ty Cole that spun the 14 car around. Boyd Hogan in the 2 is currently on pit road. This is undoubtedly getting some damage repaired. Now, I don't think he really got a whole lot of damage going through the grass, but that hit that he took into the passenger side door, it was also down close to the front of his car, down around the right front tire. They're going to want to make sure that the metal is cleared away there to avoid a tire rub.
Well, this is kind of bringing back flashbacks of how last night went in a way. Early cautions when, at some point these drivers will settle down. And just because of how many cautions we've had, I'm expecting us to have a pretty good green flag long, long run, if I could speak properly, for us to continue on with this race. But yeah, early troubles, a lot of cars, a lot of damage might have ruined their chances to win this race.
Gonna bounce an idea off of you here. See what your take is on it. We've seen these two cautions come out really with drivers getting loose going into the corner. First, it was Tyler Sifford. This time, it was John Cottle. We mentioned that last night, the second half of the race was all about the long run. These drivers wanted to get their car set up for the long run. Well, you and I both know that when you get a car set up for the long run, it is going to be wicked loose early on because as the tires heat up, the car is going to tighten up. You want to make sure that that thing's going to tighten up to a way that you're able to drive it. You don't want to start it out tight and then have it be really tight on the long run. Is that why we're seeing a lot of these drivers struggle early on because of the way they've got the car set up, preparing it for the long run, but it's really loose to start with?
Yeah, a lot of these guys were trying to set up for that time to be really set up for that longer run. And I'm expecting that's kind of what we were seeing, but some of these cars way looser than they really needed to be. Pace lights are still on, so we'll be going another time around. But yeah, it's kind of odd to see that they've gotten these cars this wicked loose to where they are losing it here on the first lap. Yes, tires are cold, but even if your tires are cold, you should not be getting this loose into 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But it looks like another driver disconnecting from the race. It's going to be Carl Dotson, no longer able to continue. Also, a couple of cars getting hit with EOLs. Boyd Hogan was given one, as well as Vince.
Right now, it looks like 14 cars are still in the running here on the lead lap, but several of them have sustained early damage. It's interesting, too. I don't necessarily know what the track conditions are here today. Obviously, we're in direct sunlight, so I'm assuming it'd be pretty slick. Both Caudle and Sifford had their same issue in just about the same area of the track, up in that second groove entering into turn 3. Is there something there that might be causing issues for drivers track-wise?
I mean, into 3, if you turn a little bit too much, your car will just turn on you too much. But the track temp right now is 103 degrees, outside temp 80 degrees. So it's a little hot there on track. And honestly, it's been hot almost all season long here at these ovals for these drivers. So I'm surprised they're not expecting the track to always be extremely hot and slick and expecting the looseness to happen for these tracks. But, it's early on in this race. The jitters might be getting out, and we're getting ready to go green.
Dustin Hall took the lead from Chad Gunisman just before that last yellow flag flew. He's going to lead him back here to green, making only his 4th start on the season. Almost in a situation where he has to win his way into the playoffs. Could it be today? He and Gunisman will get us back underway over Larry Reed, Zach York, and Ty McWhirter, the top 5. It's our second restart on lap 14.
As we're starting to see Dustin Hall in that 6 pull away, our top 3 are the only ones that have not pitted. Actually, take that back. Now it's our top 4 in a way have not pitted out all race long. And so if you go back to about 8th place, that's when you'll see the freshest of tires, but only about 3 lap fresher tires from 4th on back.
And McWhirter back here in the 96 and 5th, and right behind him, Ryan Strunk, who's done a great job as Gunisman got a little loose there, exiting out of turn 4. That was a close call again up at the front of the field, but Ryan Strunk's just been kind of minding his P's and Q's, making his way past drivers that have had issues. Right now, in the 6th position.
And just seeing the 22 car drift on back, but you got to be a little bit worrisome because these cars have been looking loose, and they might continue to look loose from here on out, even though we've had our first 2 cautions. A lot of damage on these machines. We're waiting to see if anyone else gets just a little out of shape, and we saw that last night, but it was later on in the run when cars were getting super.
And McWhirter got caught up with a little bit of the first incident back on lap 1. That seems to be affecting his car just a little bit, as drivers have been able to get around him on the outside.
Got into York, and they're going to keep it straight, but whoa, they are almost just spun each other completely out there.
Going to move Strunk to 3rd. York drifts up the track through 3 and 4, opens the door for Gunisman to take a look for that 4th position. Boy, we're seeing drivers slipping and sliding all over the place. I'm almost wondering if McWhirter might be purposely kind of slowing his pace through the corners because of what we're seeing going on right now.
I mean, it might be smart to slow down and just try to save your tires and save your car in a way. The car I'm really nervous about looking here is that 2 machine. Yes, he had a little bit of damage, but most of it was because he was driving through the grass with a little bit of contact here and there. He's very fast. That's going to be Boyd Hogan back in 8th, making a pass here for 7th.
Just got around Taylor Butcher Benjamin, crosses to the inside of Justin Carey, has worked his way from an EOL in 12th up to 7th now, trying to reel in Ty McWhirter and his teammate Chad Gunnisman. Right now, the drivers that started this race from the front row running back in 5th and 7th. So how this race has changed here in just the first 20 laps as Dustin Hall continues to show the way. How about Larry Reed up there in the 32, currently running in the 2nd position? These, again, are 2 drivers that are almost in a must-win situation to get into the playoffs. Reed's only making his 5th start of the year.
Yeah, they're really just trying to survive up front, and they're on the oldest tires out here, so they're trying to do as well as they can. Boyd Hogan on one of the freshest tires is cutting through the traffic like nothing. He's already up to 5th.
He's closing in on this battle for 3rd. It almost went wrong the first time these guys were duking it out for this 3rd position. That's the 77 of Ryan Strunk, the 19 of Zach York, and York again looks awfully loose going into turn 3 as now Boyd Hogan closes in on these 2. He's about to try and maybe get 2 for the price of 1, move up into a podium spot by the time they exit turn 2.
Yeah, I mean, with Zach York, he's so, even again there on entry looks loose, and I mean, we saw his teammate in the 18 car get loose there on entry into 3 and 4 as well as into 1. So it's just kind of gotta be careful out here with how close these guys are, as well as gotta be careful on these entries. It seems like that's the loosest the cars have been.
Brought up the fact that the 2 car is on the freshest tires up here inside of the top 10. Got about 8 laps fresher tires than the 2 cars ahead of him, 11 lap fresher tires than the top 2 of Dustin Hall and Larry Reed. And a big reason for that is why he is able to hook the bottom right down at the white line going through the corners, the shortest way around the racetrack.
Shortest way around, and you can tell when someone really has a good setup that's just underneath them, they feel confident, is they'll stay right at the yellow line and maybe move up a lane, up 1 more lane than that. But these guys are doing a fantastic job up here, but you got to give credit to Dustin Hall and doing what he's doing right now, but he's being brought by Larry Reed, and I don't know if it's because of lap traffic, because there was a little bit there, or just because Larry Reed's been saving his tires.
You can see both of them are in the same shot right now. That last time around, about 4/100ths difference between Hall and Reed, and it's about 0.6 of a second separating the 2 at this current point in time. You know, when we talk about Boyd Hogan, when we started broadcasting here in the Soda Guys Cup Series, we were talking about his winning streak. Now we're talking about his winless streak. The last 2 weeks, we'll actually make that, the last 2 weeks, he has not been to victory lane, with Ty McWhirter winning back at Michigan, and of course last week Caden Rush going to victory lane. So it's a question of when is Boyd Hogan going to find victory lane again, as he is chasing his league-leading 6th win of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Boyd Hogan has been one of those cars that whenever at an oval, you're always having circled to watch out for the 2 machine. But just because of this early trouble, it's what set him back, and it's what's trying to bring him back up to the front. Yeah, I know he's going to be pushing his car to the max, trying to catch up to these guys, but that could hurt him in the long run, even though he's on the fresher tires.
At this battle here, and it is over as Ty McWhirter moves by Zach York for the 5th position. Another driver that did get a little piece of the first wreck on lap 1, but is currently up to speed, it seems, and actually making some forward strides. That's the 9 of Joseph Piscota. Right now, he is the highest running of the Hendrick Motorsports cars. Just got around pole sitter Chad Gunnisman for that 7th position a moment ago. You can see he's got that little bit of damage to the rear end, but looks like that car could be a contender here if he can get himself a little bit further up towards the front of the field. Yeah,
that was the he only got nicked a little bit by James Love there at that caution of the first one that we had. So he had a little bit of damage, but not enough to really hinder that 9 machine. He's just trying to slowly work his way up here into the top 5, and I think he'll be able to get there just because he also has fresher tires in the car.
Another driver has gone behind the wall, and that is Oscar Jensen in the 47. Now, why is that important? Because if we're looking at our playoff standings, Oscar Jensen came into this race the cutoff line driver, 16th seed, 125 points over this driver, Vincent Arthur, who's been involved in both cautions here today. Right now, Arthur still soldiering on in the 9th position, so he's obviously not going to be able to make up 125 points here today, but he can certainly cut into that lead between himself and the 47. As Larry Reed has taken the lead here at Chicagoland, he becomes, I believe, the 4th different driver to lead the way here today so far.
Yeah, Larry Reed has been really holding on and protecting his tires for most of this. He's been doing a fantastic job pulling away and trying to do the best he can, hoping that his tires will equal out to Boyd Hogan. As Hogan now, I think it was about 3 or 4 laps ago, he was about 3 seconds away from the driver in second. Now he's a second and a half, that 2 car, and he is coming quick.
3 drivers since the drop of the green to start this race have not been to pit road yet. Larry Reed, Dustin Hall running first and second, and pole sitter Chad Gunisman. You said coming into this broadcast, the fuel window going to look somewhat similar to what we saw last night in the Grand National Series race. And these drivers here, they're getting pretty close to maybe having to think about making that first green flag pit stop.
Yeah, I mean, the fuel window is looking anywhere from 40 to 50 laps. Most likely, the 50 lap markers, if you were in the draft, as well as trying to save fuel, that is such a long mark to hit. Usually we see drivers pitting anywhere from the 40 to 45. They can push it a little bit further than 45, but usually we'll be seeing the drivers that stay out here longest, usually out of the big gainers, because they'll be saving their tires for the longer.
Reed and Hall, they're definitely going to be some of the first having to hit pit road. Boyd Hogan, obviously, since he came to pit road under the last caution, he'll be able to stretch a little bit further, and so too would Ty McWhirter and Joseph Piscota. Those 2 drivers were on pit road the last time, I believe. Or actually, nope, I'm sorry. They both were on pit road after the first caution, and they came down and actually topped off the fuel tank. So they can go a couple laps further than our top 2, Reed and Hall. Chad Gunisman, though, we wondered about the speed that we saw him in qualifying. I believe that was his first pole of the season. I'll double check on that. But we were wondering if that was translated to the fact that he had good short run speed. I think we're getting the answer as he's faded back to 7th.
Yeah, he was about good for the first about 8 to 10 laps, and then he's just dropped off like everyone else with the fresher tires, as well as just conserving their tires better, able to pass the 22 car, but he has lost all type of traction compared to our top 2 or around when we went last green.
Another driver has retired out of the race, totaling 6 drivers now out, as Spencer Tart has taken his number 10 behind the wall. Spencer Tart comes into this race 14th in the playoff standings as they run right now. He joins Oscar Jensen, Carl Dodson, John Cottle, Tyler Sifford in the garage area. Sorry, it was actually only 5 drivers out of the race. James Love just moved by Spencer Tart up to the 14th position, even though the 88 is currently running 11 laps down to the leaders. 13 cars still on the lead lap out of 40 on track. Or I'm sorry, 14 on track.
Yeah, it's 13 right now, but it's about to turn to 12. Our leader, Larry Reed, is catching up to the 34 very quickly, and they are within about 2, maybe 2.5 seconds from.
Saw them making their way around that wounded 88 of James Love, and I noticed that that 2 car of Boyd Hogan is now in the same camera shot as our top 2 leaders. He is coming in a hurry, and even now you're seeing, even on this long run, the difference between his about 11 lap fresher tires to the guys ahead of him. That last time by, he ran 3/10 faster than Larry Reed, about 2/10 faster than Dustin Hall.
Yeah, these guys up front, I mean, you're just seeing that, Boyd Hogan started off with the EOL on that last restart and now has worked his way all the way up to 3rd place. About to make the pass here on Dustin Hall, and then right in front of Dustin Hall, you've got our leader, Larry Reed, who's been doing a great job so far up front, but he kind of needs a caution at this point just to get fresher tires and be equaled out with that 2 machine, because he's going to lose time the way.
Because we know that if a caution were to come out at this point, probably everybody would come to pit road. The driver out there that's put on the less amount of tires, or less amount of laps rather on their tires, is Ty Cole, and he's even been out there for 21 circuits. As Hogan on the back bumper there of Dustin Hall. One thing I've noticed Boyd Hogan's been able to do, which is exactly what you need to do at these 1.5-mile tracks, and that's let your car ride up off the corner, up almost to the wall, because that's going to translate into a lot of straightaway speed, and that's really where he's been making up a lot of his ground.
Yeah, he's been doing a fantastic job. It also helps the fact that he's in the draft. The only problem now is that it's helped him get to the back bumper of these cars, but can it help him get by them using the draft? Most of the time when you're in line with using the draft here at Chicagoland, it likes to have that aero push in the middle of the corner where your car just plows. You got to be careful here making the pass. You want to try to make it in the straightaway entering the corner so you don't have that plow as you're starting to see the 2-car make a pass here for second.
Takes a look, but Dustin Hall on that middle line might be able to get back to the throttle sooner down the back straightaway. He'll hold him off for the moment. And that's something that we heard from drivers in last night's race, was catching someone was one thing, passing them was another. It was very difficult to find a way to get enough momentum to be able to make the pass. A lot of times, a lot of the passes we saw last night were drivers going by someone that had made a mistake.
As we're starting to see the pass possibly be made this time by, as here comes Boyd Hogan. A lot better of an entry there and clearing the 6-car.
That's exactly what he needed to do, is be at least half a car length ahead there. By the time they got to the middle of the corner, no way that Dustin Hall and those older tires would have been able to hold him off by the time they exited turn number 2. So Hogan's got one more driver that he's got to deal with, Larry Reed, who was able to open up the distance by about 9/10 because of Hogan and Hall mixing it up for second place. But now Boyd Hogan is clear of anybody else. He's got his sights set on the race lead.
Other battles that are going on track is the battle for 6th is was heating up for a second there, but it looks like the 22 might have had some issues. He's lost a lot of time. He was right on the back bumper of the 9 car, and just I'm going to go back and see what happened to Guzman, because he was right there and then lost all this time.
That's the thing. Sometimes you look at his sponsor there, Dirty Air. That's actually what we've seen come into play, not only in this race, but last night. You get right up onto the back of somebody, and all of a sudden your car is going to start pushing off of the corner, or you try and find a little bit of clean air a little bit lower. You get those left sides down on the paint line. Little mistakes like that is going to cost you time, and it's going to cost you positions in battling for position. Right now we actually have a couple of Toyota Camrys that might be closing in on each other. Ty McWhirter looks in his rearview mirror, sees that bright pink number 19 of Zach York. Those two were battling for the 4th position about 15 laps ago, and they're about to resume that rivalry again here, heading towards lap 41.
Yeah, they got lap traffic that they're trying to get by as well, battle one another. And yeah, what happened to the 22 is he actually drifted up a little bit too high and got into that 4-lane banking zone where he just lost a ton of time. He's just scrubbing off. That's why he drifted all the way back to where he is now, about a half second back from the 9 machine.
All right, I've been looking here at our telemetry, and 41, now 42 laps is what the 32 of Larry Reed is on. So we're closing in on that time when Larry Reed may have to think about making a pit stop. And I mean, we saw these guys out there on the racing surface on the first lap of this race, slipping and sliding around. We already talked about last night just how difficult this pit road is to get onto, the difference of the banking on the turns to the flat transition of the apron. If these cars are as loose as they are out on the racing surface, how difficult it's going to be for them to get onto pit road.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more of these guys having to slow down a lot sooner to come onto the apron and then into pit road. We were seeing it last night with drivers who would actually come in the middle of 3 and 4, slow down, get on the apron and pull into the pits. Other drivers would try right off of 4, trying to as quick as they can, and if they were able to hit it right, it worked out. Other times, some drivers were missing pit road, so you got to be careful with these entries and also make sure that you're good exiting the box, just because of how cold these tires.
Question is, will Larry Reed be giving up the race lead to Boyd Hogan via coming to pit road, or will Hogan be able to reel him in and pass him before that 32 has to head for pit lane for his first pit stop of the day? He's now about to complete his 44th lap on track. We're waiting on him, Dustin Hall, and the 22 of Chad Gunnisman. They're the 3 we're focusing on to really begin this round of pit stops, which really are going to stretch anywhere from about 10 to 15 laps, because some of these other guys can go a little bit further.
Yeah, and during that time, you're kind of extremely nervous nervous, banking on there not being a caution, because when you come to the pits, you're going to be at least 1 lap, possibly 2 laps down. It matters on where you're at on track compared to. So it's going to be an interesting time for these drivers, and I got to give credit to Larry Reed. He's been doing a fantastic job conserving his tires. He's out there running just as fast as Boyd Hogan. It looks like those tires are starting to equal out a little bit, but I think Boyd Hogan has finally gotten into a rhythm after passing Dustin Hall now. And he is slowly creeping back, but then he loses time here and there. It looks like it's through 3 and 4 that we're seeing Boyd Hogan lose.
Well, Larry Reed is looking for his best finish of the season. That would be a trip to victory lane. His best finish so far, only top 5 he's got this year. That was a second-place finish to Boyd Hogan back at the Concrete Monster Mile of Dover International. So these two rekindling that battle back there at Dover International, here today at Chicagoland, except this time the roles are reversed with the 32 out in front. And interesting here that the 32 has decided to stretch it as far as he can go. He's now on his 47th lap. You said about the target lap of these drivers, about 50 laps. Looking here at the calculations, though, if we continue to go green for the remainder of this race, somewhere along the way, if it is the maximum of 50 laps that you can run a tank of fuel, that 32 is going to have to find about 10 laps of savings somewhere, because it would projected have him 10 laps short.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for these drivers that did not pit under. They're really putting themselves in a disadvantage compared to the other drivers. But they also didn't have damage. They thought track position was going to be a lot more important, and maybe there was going to be another caution later on, and it just never came. We're getting into these green flag pit stops here soon. Once they start, it's going to be an interesting time for these drivers. Like we've been stating, it's difficult to get onto pit road, but Boyd Hogan is right there on the 32 machine, and around the time that we might see the 32 machine think about pitting, Boyd Hogan could be on his inside.
Boyd Hogan could be past him, who knows, as he's closed right up to the back bumper of that 32 machine. I mean, the last 2 weeks, talk about some underdog stories. You had Gaunt Brothers Racing with Ty McWhirter go to victory lane at Michigan. Last week it was Starcom Racing with Caden Rush at Sonoma. Another single car team here in Go Fast Racing could be going to victory lane if all works out for the 32
Boyd
of Larry
gets
Reed.
a little loose. Able to save it, but he got loose there in the middle of the corner. Able to save that 2 car, losing a lot of time now on Larry Reed, and all that time and tires he's been saving up, now probably thrown out the window.
And that actually really threw me off, because I thought that what was going on was Hogan was going to get around Larry Reed, who looked like he was slow through 3 and 4. Instead, it was Reed was running his own line. Boyd Hogan was trying something different, and it cost him.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the fact that these tires are going to get so worn that it's going to get loose out there. I mean, like the last time we talked about it, during that last caution, the temperature was 103 degrees. It has dropped a little bit here. Now it's 101, but still very slick. I just got word the 20 car is saying that he's going to be pitting this time. So he's starting out a little bit earlier than some of these other drivers. And I think Larry Reed's at that state, as well as the others. They're like, we got to push this thing as far as just in case we start seeing other drivers coming to the pit.
Well, it's not difficult to see Chris Hansen's number 20 Interstate Batteries Toyota Camry, that bright green machine hitting pit lane here. You know, I mentioned about it, so we'll be seeing other drivers pitting. Chad Gunnisman, the 22, also on pit lane, and we'll take a look at some of these other guys that hit pit road. But I was also going to point out, you know, with the 47 of Oscar Jensen out of the race now, not only is it good news for Vincent Arthur trying to close in on a playoff spot, but it's also good news for Chris Hansen, because he came into this race 15th in the playoff points. It's going to help him gap that cutoff line.
Oh, it's going to help a ton, and you want that gap. It looks like the 77 machine coming into the pits, as well as the 21 stated he'll be coming in this time. So a lot of cars making a choice. It's time to pit now. Larry Reed, though, and Dustin Hall, they're trying to push it as far as they can, probably until they run out of fuel, just because they're trying to match all the other cars that pitted early.
Yeah, if they can make it here, maybe 54 laps on every single one of their runs, that would give them the 10 laps they were lacking when we had it projected them only going to maximum of 50 laps, to be able to make it the rest of the way on one more pit stop after they come to pit road this time. It's like we may have had another driver hit pit road, and that is the 6 of Dustin Hall.
Yeah, all these guys trying to make it, and you're seeing though, Dustin Hall coming in on lap 54. Larry Reed still out there leading laps and trying probably to lead the most lap, get all the bonus points he can. As that 32 machine doing a great job still out there. I'm so surprised he's still running strong. And he's already past that marker you were talking about of 54 out there again for another lap.
He's about to maybe put the 11 of Taylor Butcher Benjamin a lap down, and indeed he will. Butcher Benjamin was involved in the first caution of the day, sustained quite a bit of damage. That is our points leader coming into this race. As far as the overall stands, you can see the right front damage on his FedEx Toyota. It's a question of just how far can Larry Reed push it. I mean, obviously under those first two cautions, he must have been able to save some under pacing, but are you shocked that he's been able to go almost reaching 60 laps on this tank of fuel?
I'm extremely shocked, and I'm mainly shocked in the fact that he is just a couple of tenths, maybe a couple of hundredths off of what Boyd Hogan's been running, and they're on 11 lap different tires of Reed on the older ones.
18 of Zach York on pit road, regularly scheduled stop for him. You can see the difference here between the new tires and old tires. Look at that 20 of Chris Hansen cutting his way past Boyd Hogan. He's about to get by the 32 of Larry Reed as well, and that's important for Hansen because this will put him at -1. He's currently 2 laps down to the race leader, and if I'm Larry Reed, I got to start thinking about getting out of the way of this 20 car because he's not going to wait. As now Reed moves up the track, and looks like Hansen will make the pass. 57 laps Larry Reed has been able to make it here. Waiting to see if there's going to be even any indication of him coming to pit road. And he's going to stay out another lap here, going to stretch it to 58 laps. And this says to me right now, if he's able to run these type of lap times with how many laps he's got on his tires, look out for this guy when we get to about 50 laps to go.
Oh, completely. 50 laps to go. We might even try to push it to maybe there's 40 laps left in the race. Then he'll pit. Have the freshest tires at the end of this thing and make a hard push. But with these guys staying out as long as they have, it's going to give Dustin Hall the advantage. Remember, he was only about 3 seconds away from when they came into the Dustin Hall. With him running 3 laps now to soon to be 4 laps. Fresher tires in these guys. All of this time that he was once losing, once cycles go through, he should be our leader.
Great point, because right now, every lap, he is running more than a second and a half faster than Reed and Hogan both. One thing we should point out here, too, so far nobody has been busted on pit road for speeding, but we saw a couple of drivers last night end up speeding on pit road, and it really cost them because they spent the rest of the night trying to come back, and none of them really were able to get quite the finish that they really should have gotten based on the speed they showed. You know, if we continue to go green here for the remainder of this race, you know, Larry Reed, Boyd Hogan, Vincent Arthur, Taylor Butch and Benjamin, we still are going to see them on pit road at least this time, and then everybody else is going to have to do it again. Yeah,
you got to be extremely careful here on entry, on exit, and in your box. The whole entire sequence, you need to be perfect on, and you can gain a lot of time during all this. And we saw that last night with Santini as well, with Barry Stevens. Those guys, there was a lot of time lost and gained on pit road, so you got to be careful with there. Still, our top 4, actually take that back, our top 3 are in the pits as Benjamin into the pits.
Benjamin's going to pit from the 4th position. This is going to definitely drop him through the field as he had gotten put a lap down not moments ago under green flag conditions. Boyd Hogan is reeling Larry Reed back in, though. What was about a second and a half gap after Hogan's little slip up through 3 and 4 has now been closed up to about 3 tenths.
I mean, with Larry Reed pushing as far as he had, you got to question, is Boyd Hogan going to do the same exact thing, trying to go just a little bit further? And you know, whenever Reed comes in, Boyd Hogan can stay for another 10 laps or so. He's also utilizing the draft in that way to save fuel. So this 2 machine able to save fuel a lot easier than the 32.
Just to show the difference between 62-lap-old tires and fresh tires, that last time by, Larry Reed ran a full 2 seconds slower than his fastest lap of the race. I mean, a huge drop-off here in terms of tires, and 63 laps Larry Reed has been able to stretch it. Now, I don't think there's any possible way that he can stretch it to lap 80 and just make this a one-stop. But, I mean, this is a tremendous job, to your point, of tire conservation on the part of the 32. And look there, 6 is going to go around of Dustin Hall unlapping himself. That's important because when the 32 and the 2 eventually come to pit road, that pretty much says right there, Dustin Hall is going to end up being our race leader.
Yeah, you also got Vincent Arthur still on the lead lap, but he's 4 seconds away from our leaders, getting on the back bumper of him and lapping that 24 machine down, who still has not pitted. Our top 3 have not pitted yet, but Boyd Hogan to the lead now. We'll see when Larry Reed decides to come in. It might be.
And it is going to be now. Ooh, that was not exactly the prettiest of entries going into pit road, as that car almost snapped around on him out of the exit of the 4th corner. But he will bring it to pit road now. He stretched it a total of 64 laps for that 32 car. Tremendous job of being able to stretch it way past what we had as the projected fuel window. But that now puts Boyd Hogan out in front, who, if that is as far as these guys can go, he's still going to be able to be out there for another 10 laps or so. And I think, to your point, the 24 Vincent Arthur is now Hogan's going to hit pit road. I think what Arthur was trying to do is stay out, see if he can get himself a bonus point for a lap led. I mean, that car is obviously damaged and off the pace. The bad news for him is he has that 6 right behind him of Dustin Hall and fresh tires. That's for position, so that strategy was not going to work out the way he planned.
It was not going to work out at all, and, you know, it was a good effort by the 24, but too much damage made it to where he could not get there in time to lead that lap. Dustin Hall, though, he is on 10 older tires than Hogan as well as Larry Reed. But here's the thing, Larry and Hogan are both going to be on so much fresher tires, they're going to blast by all these other drivers.
Dustin Hall, though, going to inherit the race lead. It's like the gap's going to be about 10 seconds back to the 2 of Boyd Hogan, who is still just now exiting pit road. There's an exchange for second. There's an exchange for third as McWhirter and Gunnisman now move up into podium positions. And there's Larry Reed in the 32. He's going to come out in this cycle behind the 2 of Boyd Hogan. I think the big difference in that, they both had about the same amount of time in their pit stall, but about 4/10 difference on their time spent on pit road, either coming in or leaving.
Larry Reed got hit with the black flag. I think he got loose off of 4, crossed the line too quick. I don't know what happened to that 32 machine.
He may have spun out. Something really happened, because all of a sudden he went off the telemetry, and next thing I know, he's on pit road.
He is very upset over the race. We're trying to figure out what exactly happened. He got loose off of 2, came up very close to the wall, didn't hit the wall, but I'm seeing him through 3 and 4. He got hit with the black flag. And Larry Reed now disconnected from the race. He's now out of this. So that's now handing the race to the 6 and the 2 machine. And I think this really gives the race to Boyd Hogan now, as long as we stay green.
Very well as Boyd Hogan. We mentioned how Ty McWhirter and Chad Gunnisman had gotten around him after the pit stop cycle. Well, he has passed the both of them back. Now currently about 10 seconds behind Dustin Hall. And again, in terms of tire advantage, it's back in the camp of the 2 of Boyd Hogan. He's got about 12 lap fresher tires than Dustin Hall. But if I'm looking in terms of when Dustin Hall came to pit road, these 2 drivers, everybody else is going to have to be on pit road at least one more time. It really, right now, this is the moment that Dustin Hall has to manage the gap between himself and the 2 car, because it's all going to translate as to what the gap's going to look like eventually when we get down to around 45, 50 laps to go.
Yeah, no, Dustin Hall needs to do exactly like we saw Larry Reed do. Stay consistent. Save those tires for the longer run. Yes, run fast laps. You've got to lead. Just conserve your tires so that when Boyd Hogan finally gets to you with about 30 lap old tires, it finally starts to equal out. But it is looking extremely difficult with Boyd Hogan running almost a second and a half, sometimes 2 seconds faster than the 6 machine.
Right now, with the number of laps that Dustin Hall has run on his tires and the number of laps Boyd Hogan has run on his tires, if we're looking forward towards the end of this race, Dustin Hall can probably stretch it as far as 40 laps to go before he'd have to make his final pit stop of the day. Boyd Hogan could stretch it till about 30 laps to go, but if you're Hogan, When the 6 comes to pit road, do you maybe come to pit road either the same lap or the lap after, making sure that 6 car does not have an advantage over you tire-wise?
I would probably think that would be the best decision that Boyd Hogan could do, but due to the fact that I saw them, those tires start to equal out around lap 30, it's going to be difficult to say. I mean, I'm looking at the best lap times placed down for these drivers. Best lap in the whole entire field placed down all race long is by Dustin Hall, and that was the start of the last pit stop. Dustin Hall has the fastest car out here, so I don't know if staying in around the same range would work out for Boyd.
This is the closest battle on track right now. Well, it was, and now it is again. Zach York running in 5th. Joseph Piscota right now about 0.6 of a second behind him in that 6th position. Everybody else is spread out anywhere from 1.5 seconds to 7 seconds. So at this point in time, I mean, things are looking very similar to the second half of last night's race, where we may be going green to the finish, but we cannot throw out the possibility of maybe a caution coming out, bunching these guys up. And if that is the case, right now we've only got 6 cars running on the lead lap. Ryan Strunk, the first car, 1 lap down in 7th.
Yeah, Strunk's got Chris Henson almost 0.5 seconds behind him, trying to run him down to get that lucky dog position. So Strunk not really feeling the most comfortable right now, as it looks like he's getting a little loose there in that 77 machine. We were seeing that earlier on for Strunk, but continuing on, they're still in 7th.
Second place runner rather, Boyd Hogan found himself right in the middle of that 3-way battle for what would be the free pass position. And Vincent Arthur, following in the draft of the 2 with his fresh tires, just moved by both Chris Hansen and Ryan Strunk. So should a caution fly here, Vincent Arthur would be the free pass recipient. Kind of surprised that even with the damage sustained to the front of that race car, that he's still out there laying down pretty decent lap times. We talk about the fact that these 1.5-mile tracks are so aerodynamically dependent. There's no way that 24 car is aero in any way, shape, or form in terms of straightaway speed, but somehow he's still got a lot of power under that hood.
Yeah, and it kind of just makes you feel a little sad for the 24 with how well he's running, even with that front end damage. Just imagine how well he could have been doing if he did not get that damage earlier on, but still a great run for himself. He started back in 15th, now up to 7th, and being the first car 1 lap down. If he just gets a caution, he'll be back on the lead lap.
Vincent Arthur has had 3 top 5 finishes in the last 4 races. Of course, last week at Sonoma, he finished 2nd to Caden Rush. That's where he ran most of that race at the road course, as battle for the lead is on, and it's over just as quickly as it was on. Boyd Hogan moves by Dustin Hall. He's back out in front in that 2 machine, and following right in his tire tracks, Vincent Arthur. Arthur right now maybe thinking about getting himself back on the lead lap the hard way.
Yeah, Arthur is running 11-lap-old tires compared to Boyd Hogan, who's actually running only 11-lap-old tires. So extremely surprised to see the pace that we're seeing from the 24 car, who's actually running faster than Boyd Hogan at the moment due to...
Well, for 4th, it started to close up now. Zach York, who got a piece of both of our cautions early on in this race, still in that 4th position. You can see the battle scars on the driver's side, the rear end up around the right front as well of his Toyota Camry, but Joseph Piscota right behind him there in that Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet in that 5th position, trying to move up into 4th place. And this is a battle between 2 cars that are just on the tail end of the lead lap.
I mean, let's give credit to the Hendrick guys that did not qualify in the 9 and the 24, 4th and 6th. So congratulate, I mean, 5th with the 88 machine of James Love, who had the most damage sustained that first caution. He's still trucking around. And if he's able to get a couple more laps, he'll pass Larry Reed and put himself.
I think when he crosses the line this time, he will bypass the 32 of Larry Reed, moving up into the 13th position. As he hits the line, indeed, he does move up another position. James Love coming into this race 12th in the playoff stands. Now, he's got a 387-point gap between himself and that cutoff line, so it's looking very good for him to point his way in. But we talk about it, when we start getting close to the end of the regular season, drivers want to make sure they have good momentum heading into the playoffs, because one or two bad races in the final regular season races of the season could translate into you getting eliminated in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah. Eliminated or setting you up to have a very stressful last couple of races. So you want to continue to be staying consistent from here on out, running in the top 10, running in the top 5, just getting good runs here in the last couple of races, setting yourself up for the end of the.
Riding inside the number 9 of Joseph Piscota, and I want to take a look real quick. Look left side of your screen there. Watch the hands on the steering wheel. A lot more turning to the right than there is to the left. I mean, even now in this long run, drivers fighting with their race cars. The rear ends wanting to come around, and that's why they're counter steering it into the corner to make sure it doesn't spin out on them. Of course, Joseph Piscota right now with the disadvantage of running in the dirty air of Zach York, having to find some clean air to the nose to allow that car to turn.
Yeah, I mean, you got to try everything you can to get through these corners. Looking back in the field, it looks like the 22, our pole sitter of Chad Gunsman, is not having the best of days. He just came into the pits 4 laps ago after scraping the wall, getting some damage. He is all the way back in 9th place, 2 laps down. Another car that's 2 laps down behind him in 10th. That's going to be Taylor Butcher Benjamin, who came in 3 laps ago, had decided to pit. That, these guys are setting themselves up to where they're going to have to come in one more time, and they're already 2 laps down.
And both of these drivers as well, Gunnisman and Benjamin, right now they are first and second in the overall standings. Neither one have been to victory lane yet this season, but at the end of the regular season champion gets some bonus points going into the playoffs. These two, Benjamin leading Gunnisman, were separated by 43 points coming to this race, and when I saw that Benjamin got involved in the lap 1 incident, Gunnisman starting up there on the pole, I was kind of thinking Gunnisman might be able to utilize this race to cut into that points lead, but with them only running 1 position separation, doesn't look like that's going to be the case, at least for the moment. Give a shout out to Chris Hansen there in the 20, though, because if we were to give him a kind of a moniker here when we do these cup races, it would kind of be the quiet man. We don't talk about him very much. He kind of runs towards the back, kind of stays out of the way, but then when it really matters, when all the dust settles, he then fights his way up there into a top 10 position. Right now, he is running in 7th place, second car 1 lap down. Great job for a guy that started pretty close towards the rear of the field today.
Yeah, I mean, Hansen had an interesting start on it, but man, he has really shown up here today and keeping that car clean. He started back in 19th place, last place with the start today, and up to 7th on that 20 car.
And running right now a lap down as well, but in the 8th position is Ryan Strunk. We mentioned that we haven't seen him for a couple of races, as that 77 out of Spire Motorsports has been filled in by Greg Newsom the last couple of weeks, but Strunk was another driver that was able to make his way through the early incidents, and right now is looking like he will be finishing in the top 10 currently in the 8th spot. But up towards the front, we've got that battle for 4th place. It's gotten even closer. It's now nose to tail between Zach York's Toyota and Joseph Piscota's Chevrolet.
Yeah, I've been keeping my eyes on this, and the 19's been getting pretty loose off the corner, but it just seems like Piscota's not able to really keep that momentum here in the middle of the corner, and that's why he's losing time on the 19, gains it up on entry. On the exit of 3 and 4, though, that's when the 9 machine usually makes up all that time, as you're seeing.
See, really the only way that somebody can be able to make a pass, it seems, is if they can get the better momentum off the corner. Really, the only drivers we've seen be able to do that are drivers that kind of run that second groove and get better straightaway speed, run the higher line off of 2, but if we think back to when Boyd Hogan used the outside line through 3 and 4 trying to pass Larry Reed, that didn't work out for him. And a number of our cautions have been with drivers spinning out up in that second groove. So I think drivers might be a little hesitant to go up there and try that.
Yeah, you kind of want to make the pass here on the bottom. If you can get your car underneath the one and push them up into the second groove, possibly even the third groove, they'll lose speed just because of how much you're pushing them up. They'll lose traction, so you'll make the pass on the inside, but it's about how much you can really put yourself side by side. If you're just on the rear bumper, you're going to lose them in the center of the corner. You have to be completely side by side on entry, and then you have a chance to make that pass.
to stay on these two, as this still is the closest battle on track for the fourth position. Boyd Hogan has opened up his gap between himself and Dustin Hall by about 6.5 seconds. You know, we saw Larry Reed be able to stretch his car, his fuel, to about 64, 65 laps. We're closing in on that window here. I mean, do you think we might see somebody like Dustin Hall, Ty McWhirter, who's already got a victory? And they're about 36, 37 laps on their tires right now. As soon as the fuel window opens, do we see them on pit road, or are they going to shoot maybe for a little bit closer to the end of the race, like around lap 45, lap 50?
I'm expecting most of these guys are shooting for lap 50 if they can hit that marker. If not, probably go to 100 and feel like they can make it from there on. So he's on a different strategy. He's trying to push it as far as he can, so then he can pit. And then when he pits, he's got the shortest amount of time that he doesn't have to worry about saving his tires. He can just push as hard as he wants to finish up.
The thing I would wonder about, though, for Boyd Hogan is, you know, even if he's able to stretch it as far as he's able to go, he's undoubtedly going to have to take on 4 tires. That's about the same amount of time as it takes to put 2 cans of fuel into the car. And right now, I mean, he's got the fastest car out there. He proved it in this race when he was running down Larry Reed. He's got the best car in terms of long run speed. I kind of feel like maybe if he could be the one that comes to pit road ahead of Dustin Hall, sets the table here, there's nothing then that Hall, McWhirter, York, or any of them would be able to do.
I mean, they could honestly try to come back from that. Boyd Hogan, though, yes, it would take longer with the full tank of fuel that would be taken in, as well as 4 tires. But that fresh rubber is just so important. I mean, we saw Boyd Hogan when he came into the pits. He was about 12, almost 13 seconds back from Dustin Hall, and within 5 laps, he caught up and made the pass on the 6th.
When you watch this 2 car go through 3 and 4, you can almost hear the rear tires squealing. I mean, I have been seeing that car almost sliding through the center of the corner. Right there, you can see him kind of drift up the track, trying to make sure that he catches the rear end of that car. He is holding nothing back right now. Even though he is running about 2 seconds slower than his fastest lap on fresh tires, he's out there trying to run some qualifying laps, trying to open up as big a gap as he possibly can back to Dustin Hall. And we've got our first driver to pit road. It's the 20 of Chris Hansen with 66 to go.
Chris Hansen's going to try his best to push that car as far as he can go. But, man, it's going to be a stretch there for the 20 machine. But, yeah, I think he should be good as long as he can keep that fuel in check there for the rest of the way. I mean, we saw one car of Larry Reed be able to do it. He, unfortunately, was not able to finish out this race after getting a black flag that put him under, and he decided to pit that car. But we saw him go about 67 laps or so. So it's going to be a hard push for that 20 machine. It could work out for him with him trying to gain all this time up.
And see, sometimes, too, what you have to do, and maybe this is what Chris Hansen is thinking. I mean, Hansen's basically, at this point in time, been battling around 7th position. Ryan Strunk, Chad Gunisman. You basically have to figure out where your car stacks up to everybody else, pick a number of where you think your car should be running, and shoot for that number. I mean, Hansen right now, he is not coming to pit road, making a pit stop that's going to win him this race. Right now, he is trying to pull a strategy that's going to get him maybe 1 or 2 positions higher than where he was running just before he came to pit road, trying to vary the strategy just a little bit to gain you those extra points that could be very important when you get down to the end of the regular season.
Yeah, he's trying to set himself up to get up to Strunk. I don't know if he'll get up to Arthur, but for sure, this is a strategy to try to get him at least up to 7th place. We know that Gunsman, as well as Butcher Benjamin, they have to pit one more time. Yes, they're on kind of the newest of tires out there, of 19 and 18 lap old tires compared to everyone else, but there's still too many laps on those tires from here on out to make it to the end.
Right now, in terms of lap times, the fastest car on the track still is Boyd Hogan. Wow, that time by, he ran a 31.998. His last couple of laps have been in the low 32 range, so that time by, I don't know what he found on those older tires, but it just put him back into the 31-second bracket.
Yeah, he's around that buffer zone where from here on out, you're going to be just running around 31, 32s if you've been conserving your tires and keeping them fresh. as we're seeing, Dustin Hall, he's been running 32.1s, and he's on 45 lap old tires. So on the later runs, the 6 machine isn't running that far off of what the 2 is.
Dustin Hall on the first round of green flag pit stops was on pit lane 12 laps before Boyd Hogan was. You gotta wonder if it's the 6 that's going to set the tone here for when Boyd Hogan eventually will end up making his pit stop. And we gotta remember, pit road still has a part to play in this, because we had one of our favorites to maybe be in the hunt for this win in Larry Reed get hit with a speeding penalty on the first round of pit stops. So these drivers have to have that in the back of their minds, because right now, if you're Boyd Hogan, the one guy that maybe can beat Boyd Hogan today is Boyd Hogan, and that's by making a mistake on pit road.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 7.2 second gap between himself and second place. He's feeling very confident right now. Actually, that going through that straightaway lost a little bit of time for Boyd Hogan on Dustin Hall, but I mean, let's give credit to the drivers all around. I mean, the battle for fourth is still chucking on, and they're actually starting to gain here on the 96. So Ty McWhiter, he's going to be someone to watch out for here.
I'm almost wondering, we know Boyd Hogan's got 5 wins already this season. A couple of weeks ago, we saw Ty McWhirter get his first career win at Michigan. Those are 2 guys that right now don't have anything to lose. They're just out there trying to rack up more playoff points now. And so if you're McWhirter, who right now is running 21 seconds behind Boyd Hogan, I'm almost looking at him maybe to be one of those guys to throw out a Hail Mary shot and trying to see if he can gain at least a little bit of that deficit on Boyd Hogan. And of course, if Dustin Hall also does the same, that might force the hand of Boyd Hogan having to come to pit road maybe about 5-10 laps sooner than he originally planned. But Zach York, we mentioned him soldiering on here today after being involved in both of our early cautions. He's third in the overall standing, so he's been very consistent this year. And right now, here today, a statement being made by this 19 car that despite the early issues, he's still got a car that's up here able to finish inside the top 5.
In the last 2 laps, he has cut that distance in half between the 19 and 96 for third place. Zach York looking to make a hard charge here at the end, and they're on pretty similar tires here, but everyone's trying to push their cars possibly to lap 60 on all their machines, and Boyd Hogan, he's only getting closer to 40 laps.
Zach York really knows how to get every little bit out of his race car. I remember back to last week at Sonoma, he made a couple of mistakes at the road course, but when he made those mistakes, he was pushing the car hard, trying to pick up positions, eventually finished that race in 6th, but at certain points, he was up there. I think he at one point was up in the race lead. He was battling at times for 3rd place. I mean, he really was forcing that car to take corners maybe a little bit more aggressively than other drivers were. And to your point right now, in terms of lap times, he is actually the 3rd fastest car out there on the track of the top 5.
Yeah, he is running extremely quick. Other cars that are running pretty quick right now, I got to give credit to Ryan Strunk. He's actually putting down some pretty decent times just based off of his lap times, he's on 52 lap old tires, and he's running pretty close to Vincent Arthur, who has fresher tires there in 6th.
Right now, Dustin Hall, Ty McWhirter, and Ryan Strunk, they are the 3 out there with the oldest tires. 53 laps for Strunk, 52 laps for Hall and McWhirter, respectively. And Dustin Hall from 2nd place. Here we go. This is his final pit stop of the day.
And it's not a bad time to come in and take that pit stop. It's going to be about 57 laps you got to run on those tires. So later on in the run, he was running pretty similar times as Boyd Hogan. He's got to hope that Boyd Hogan stays out there for much longer now. That those tires are pretty... I mean, it's such a risky move with there being such a difference in tires, but I think will be taking the lead here. It's just when will Boyd Hogan catch up to the 6 machine if we see these pit strategies and pit sequence goes.
I think that the gap between Boyd Hogan and Dustin Hall just before Dustin Hall hit pit road was somewhere between 6.5 to 7 seconds. We'll have to see if Dustin Hall is able to close that up If I recall correctly, when we saw Dustin Hall make the pit stop earlier, he was gaining anywhere from a second to a second and a half each lap on then Boyd Hogan and Larry Reed, who were running in first and second at the time. So if he can run those laps again, it's all going to come down to how big of a gap he's going to have between himself and the two when Boyd Hogan eventually comes to pit road. But right now, Boyd Hogan, he could stretch it a little bit further, about maybe another 15 to 20 laps should he so choose.
And he's not feeling nervous at all for Boyd Hogan, as we're seeing the 96 pull into the pits right now, and a whole bunch of other cars think about coming in right now. Boyd Hogan is the only car on the lead lap. Everyone else is one lap down. So if there is a caution, Dak York, if he's not involved, will get the lucky dog spot, and that's going to put Dustin Hall in a very tricky situation here.
The likelihood of a caution slim to none with how everyone is so spread out. But boy, how interesting would that be if right now the yellow flag were to fly with everybody one lap down to race leader Boyd Hogan. Looks like Zach York is going to come to pit road now. Justin Carey in the 21 also on pit lane, as McWhirter right now leaving pit road in the 96. A couple of drivers that we know for certain we're probably going to see in the next couple of laps, the 77 of Ryan Strunk and the 9 of Joseph Piscota, who right now has just moved up to the highest he's run all day, right now in the second position.
Second place, and Piscota feeling pretty good. Dustin Hall just got by Vincent Arthur, I should say, for third place, and now we're seeing the 9 machine into the pits.
Piscota going to give up second place as he'll make his final stop here. We're at less than 50 laps to go now. This is what we call the money stop here today at Chicagoland. This is the make it or break it pit stop for these drivers, and for some of these guys like Boyd Hogan eventually, as well as Dustin Hall and Ty McWhirter, who have already made their pit stops. This is basically, I guess you could call it the race-winning move potentially for all three of them.
And just looking at the lap times, Dustin Hall is running faster and faster here in the last couple of laps, trying to gain as much time as he can. But he is about a little over half difference between the 6 and the 2. So for Dustin Hall to put himself back on the lead lap.
Saw there Taylor Butcher Benjamin in the 11 on pit road, making his final pit stop of the day. Ryan Strunk in the 77 behind Boyd Hogan right now is the first car 2 laps down. He still has to come to pit road, and it's probably going to have to be within the next 3 to 5 laps. He's been out there for 60 laps on his set of tires. Vincent Arthur, let's not forget, in that 24 is on about the same pit strategy as race leader Boyd Hogan, so he can stay out a little bit longer as well. But lap times between Boyd Hogan and Dustin Hall, that time by about 1.7 seconds made up. Let's see what it is this time when the 6 car hits the line. And that time by 1.8 seconds faster than Boyd Hogan. So even though he has quite a gap of track distance between himself and the two, he is cutting into it quick.
Oh yeah, he is cutting it in quick, and he's been out there for 7 laps. So all this time, it's been anywhere from 2 seconds to one and a half per se. And due to the fact that he's been out there for 7 laps, 6 laps now, Dustin Hall, once the pit sequence goes through, should have the lead. But for how big of a lead will he have once we see Boyd Hogan come in, and how fast will that 2 car run him down?
Here's the thing you brought up, and I want to just revisit it again. You said for Dustin Hall, he needed Boyd Hogan to stay out how many laps to be able to kind of take advantage of those fresh tires?
I mean, right now he's already gotten past. Hypothetically, if we see Boyd Hogan come in now, Dustin Hall, if we stay green, will have the lead. But for these tires to be equal, that they need to be around 30 laps, old tires for both drivers, and then they'll be equaled out at that point. But with how long we're seeing Hogan out there, Hogan's going to have the advantage for the rest of this race.
See, that's the thing I was thinking of. You know, if you kind of flip it around, what you were talking about from Hall to Hogan, well, if you put Hogan as the aggressor, you know, the amount of laps that he stays out here is laps that Dustin Hall is putting on his tires, and then that puts Boyd Hogan at the advantage of fresh tires as opposed to Dustin Hall's old tires. So, I mean, right now, if he were to come to pit road, he would have 10 lap fresher tires than Dustin Hall does right now.
And this is exactly where they were at last time when Hogan came into the pits. And we know Hogan's going to stay out there for another possibly 2 to 3 more laps, but he can come in at any moment. It looks like he might be slowing down. No, he's going to continue going for another lap or so. So Hogan can stay out there pretty much as long as he wants for the next 10 laps if he wants.
If I recall correctly, Boyd Hogan stayed out 55 laps on the first run. He's closing in on that here within the next 1.5 laps or so. So maybe he's sticking with that strategy of pitting every 55 laps. Here we'll wait and see. As we saw moments ago, Ty McWhirter got around him. That puts McWhirter 1 lap down. Here comes Zach York. That's going to put him now 1 lap down as well. Still the entire field -1 to race leader Boyd Hogan. And the gap continuing to close, though, in terms of lap times between Hogan and Hall. That last time by, about 1.5 seconds faster, was the 6 over the 2. And you can clearly see right now that Boyd Hogan is kind of backing his pace down just a little bit. And here is the pass that will put Dustin Hall back on the lead lap.
Back on the lead lap, and it's going to be giving him a pretty nice lead here whenever we see Hogan coming to the pits. It also sounds like the 24 car has pulled into the pits now, so the last couple of drivers that need to pit now, it's going to be Ty Cole back in 12th place, 5 laps down, as well as I think Chris Hansen is good to the go. She's going to be really close for that machine. Chad Goonsman, he's going to have to pit at least one more time, and as well as Boyd Hogan, your leader at the moment, he's going to have to come in the pits here in the next.
This would complete his 55th lap. Let's see if indeed that's where he split it up with 55 laps on each stint before he comes to pit road. Nope, he's going to stay out another lap here. And if we're looking right now in terms of what the advantage would be when he eventually makes his pit stop, he would have 14 lap fresher tires between himself and Dustin Hall.
And that's massive. I mean, the gap that we're probably going to be seeing with the pits happening, probably going to be about 7, possibly 9, maybe 10 lap difference. 10-second difference when Dustin Hall comes to Dustin Hall gets the lead and Boyd Hogan pits. I've been struggling to speak all day, man. Just the fact that this fuel strategy and tire strategy is coming to an end here. It's looking like Boyd Hogan is going to only have a couple, maybe about 20 laps to 25 laps if he comes in now to run down Dustin Hall. I think he's going to have just about enough time to do that and gap Hall by about.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen already here the difference of about 60 laps between Boyd Hogan and Dustin Hall has translated anywhere from 1.5 seconds to 1 second and 8/10 difference. Right now, depending on when Boyd Hogan pits, let's say he pits with 35 laps to go. If I'm Dustin Hall, I think you are going to have anywhere from a 40 to 45 second gap between yourself and Boyd Hogan if you're going to have a shot of maybe holding off that 2 on the final 2 or so laps.
I mean, that lap by, it was 0.3 difference on their lap times. Dustin Hall's tires are fading away. Boyd Hogan, when he pits, he's going to have that advantage of almost 2 seconds on his tires compared to time-wise, comparative to
Huge that it only took 17 laps for Boyd Hogan on almost 60 lap old tires and Dustin Hall's tires to almost even out to less than 0.5 second difference in terms of lap times here. And Boyd Hogan about to go on to his 60th lap, closing in on 35 laps to go. It's all really in the hands of that too, of when he decides to make that pit stop. He can still stay out there for another 5 or so laps, maybe stretch another 7 laps if he so chooses. He might be waiting for a caution to maybe come out at this point just to see if he can get most of the field trapped an entire lap down.
Yeah, I mean, either way, this 2 machine is the fastest car out here and has been ever since Larry had to take his car behind the wall. Dustin Hall put down a couple of fast laps. Boyd Hogan, though, has been the master class as he is running still 32.3s now coming into the pits. He's got to make sure he does not speed coming into the pits. Does not speed, but he's got to be careful on exit now and not making any mistakes coming into a stall and exiting.
So the pressure is on the 2. In terms of pit road execution, the pressure is on the 6 of Dustin Hall. When Hogan hit pit road, it was about 30 seconds difference between himself and Boyd Hogan. Here comes Hall out of turn 4. Right now, just based on the lap times that he ran the last time around, we're going to have to see a gap of maybe 45 to 50 seconds if Dustin Hall's going to even have a shot here with 34 laps to go of holding that 2-car at bay. Gap's starting to grow a little bit here. However, Boyd Hogan is leaving pit road, so I don't think that it's going to be nearly the gap that Dustin Hall needs.
It's going to be bigger than it was last time, but is it a big enough gap? He's going to be on much older tires, 20 lap compared to how last time went down. I just cannot see how this is going to work out. Let's look at the telemetry once he crosses the line and gets back up to speed. Boy, he's going to be a man on a mission. With it coming closer to 30 laps to go, there is plenty of time for this two machine to run down the steps.
It was only 13 seconds before Boyd Hogan started eating back into Dustin Hall's lead. Nowhere close to the interval that Dustin Hall needed to have between himself and the two. I mean, right now, Boyd Hogan's probably going to close in and take the race lead back from Dustin Hall somewhere in the next 10 laps.
It once was 13, and now it's 11 in just one lap. 2 seconds already gone. It's about to be 10.5 seconds crossing the line.
With that time by 2.2 seconds gained by Boyd Hogan on Dustin Hall, and that's a difference of 20 laps between his tires and Dustin Hall's tires. And we got to go back to, I mean, obviously Boyd Hogan has proved that he has been a race winner all season long. He's been up at the front every single week, but he's also got 5 wins at the bank, which also gave him the opportunity to be able to play this kind of strategy. You've got so much flexibility when you know you're already locked into the playoffs.
Yeah, so he can do whatever he really feels like at this moment, feeling confident. It is already less than 9 seconds. And Boyd Hogan, that first lap that he put down was the fastest lap of the complete day. And it looks like Goodsman setting up to come into the pits. This time will be our last person to come into the pits. And it looks like Chris Henson was not able to run all the way to the end. He also had to come into the pits.
Mike Cole in the 34 was also on pit row moments ago. We'll jump back up to the front in a moment as that gap continues to close, but the battle for fourth, it's back on. Right now, Zach York and Joseph Piscota, about 1 lap difference on their tires, and here comes Piscota, finally gets to the left rear quarter panel of the 19 after about 50 or so laps of trying. He's finally going to clear and move into the 4th position, bypassing Zach York. I mean, well, as soon as I say that, York's going to battle back on the top side. This battle's not over yet.
Piscota still able to stay there strong. It's going to be staying side by side in turn number 1. That 9 machine feeling good. He's been trying so many times, but on the outside, here comes York with that momentum.
Saw York try and pinch Piscota down to that white line. The 9 almost came up into the 19. They're still side by side going into turn 3. York a little bit better there through the center on that top side. Edges ahead for the moment. Piscota going to cut down to the apron on the front straightaway, try and make it shorter there. They're still side by side for that 4th position.
The one car that's loving all this action is going to be the 96 in 3rd. Yeah, it was being challenged by York by about 2 seconds difference in gap. And now it has gapped himself out to about 3 seconds, almost 3.5, due to the 19 and 9 still side by side.
We wondered about the possibility of a caution coming out here in the final 50 laps. This might be the vicinity of where it could happen if these two continue to run as close as they have been. There's been a little bit of contact a bit there through 3 and 4 the last couple of laps. They're still side by side as York right down on the passenger side door of the 9 of Piscota, who gets onto the apron, pushes up. They almost got into each other off 2 again.
They're getting real racy right here just for 4th place, and it looks like still able to hold on and will be staying up front, able to drop down low, block the 9 from getting under him.
And he got loose in trying to do so and almost got bumped from behind by Piscota, who again gets back to the inside. I mean, this is fun to watch. This is not for the race lead. Right now, this is a battle for the 4th position. The last 2 cars on the lead lap, and Piscota edges ahead, pushes up off the corner, almost contact again.
But the challenge for the lead is growing into something smaller and smaller, because guess what? It's less than a half. Boyd Hogan has done it. He's right on the back bumper of Dustin Hall.
We'll see if these guys can settle out this battle here, and We may be able to jump up there real quick and watch this, and I call it a battling air quotes. Well, actually, it's right behind these two guys battling for fourth as Hogan jumps up to that second groove, gonna try and swing around the outside of Dustin Hall. No contest as he blows by the sixth machine and puts his Penske Racing Ford back out in front. Now he gets the front row seat of this side-by-side battle for fourth.
He's got to be careful. They've been racing so close to one another, the 9 and the 19. They've almost made contact multiple times. If Boyd Hogan gets too close and they do make contact, Boyd Hogan could be the one, getting into an accident he didn't want to get into. So you got to be careful with these guys being so close, getting so racy here just for fourth and trying to stay on the lead lap.
They've been side by side the last 5-6 laps,
here
and I was
goes
going to say,
Boyd.
does Boyd Hogan try going 3 wide? Here he goes.
Cleanly makes it by almost 4 wide as you had James Love on the. Whoa, there goes York.
Oh, boy. York, I thought was going to lose it there as that car was slideways through the center of 3 and 4.
What a save by York, but there goes the 9 of Piscota, and I think he's gone. I think York used up way too much, and now you got that 96 car feeling a little bit of fresh air because he's almost got a 4-second gap on fourth place.
McWhirter really all by his lonesome for the moment. He is the last car now on the lead lap. That pass by Boyd Hogan 3 wide down the back straightaway put both Piscota and York a lap down. Right now, Piscota would be in the free pass position should we get a caution here as we're closing in on 20 laps to go. And the gap just continues to grow now between Boyd Hogan and Dustin Hall. Last driver that wants to see a caution right now would be Boyd Hogan.
Yeah, Boyd Hogan does not want to see a caution, and right now the battle for fourth, but once was for the last car on the lead lap, now for the lucky dog. Zach York trying to make a move back, but it just looks like he doesn't have tires left under him at this point as he is on the older tires. Just 1 lap difference between the two cars. Still, then with racing side by side, so that hurt York more than it did.
Lose a little momentum there as he had to give way to the fresh tires of Chad Gunnisman. Right now 3 laps down in the 9th position, and he'll now make his way around Piscota as well. You've also got fresh tires and Chris Hansen back there in the 20 machine. I mean, credit to Zach York, though. I mean, we mentioned the fact that he and Piscota, it was about 1 lap difference on tires between those two. And York, we saw so many drivers really afraid to go up to that second groove. Zach York proving that there was something up there as he was able to hold off Piscota for about 5 to 7 laps there.
Yeah, he was trying his best so hard trying to hold him off there. And Piscota had been trying for a while as well, and just never truly worked out. Now you're seeing all the cars trying to make passes around one another here. Lap cars having issues, and I think the 11 machine might have hit the wall once again because I think there is more damage on that right side. Yes, he is on older. I think there's a little bit more damage on that front right.
Killer Butcher Benjamin just trying to salvage a top 10 here today as he was involved in one of our early cautions. Right now in 9th, 3 laps down. Chad Gunnisman would be for position up ahead of him, but he is about 2.5 seconds ahead. There's Dustin Hall in the 6th, now having to deal with all of this traffic up ahead of him, including the 11, the 22, the 19, the 9 up there is continuing to allow Boyd Hogan to be able to pull away. As Hogan right now not having to deal with any lap traffic.
Not dealing with it at all as Dustin Hall finally getting by the 11 machine. And yeah, the 2 car has plenty of fresh air in front of him. Nothing to really worry about. The next car he'll catch is going to be the 34 of Ty Cole, and that for another couple of laps. So I think Dustin Hall, though, a couple of corners ago might have gotten a little bit loose because the 11 said, nice save there.
I mean, let's take nothing away from Dustin Hall today. He spent most of this race up in the podium. He was running 3rd in the beginning stages of the race behind Boyd Hogan and then Larry Reed, who spent the first 50 or so laps out in front in this race. And then after Reed first early departure. Dustin Hall moved up to second. And, I go back to the last Speedway race that he was in, back at another mile and a half at Kansas. He qualified up on the front row, got involved in an early wreck, and finished in the 21st position. A much better run here today. And he's definitely been a contender. He's been a guy that we've kept our camera focused on for a majority of this race. Nice to see a good qualifying result translate into a good race result as well.
Yeah, I mean, he was trying his best, try something different than what Boyd Hogan was doing. Just, it didn't work out the best way that it could. I mean, started third, going to get second. Boyd Hogan started second, looking like he's going to get great runs for these guys. And it's back in fourth and fifth, where you've got drivers that started back in 14th and 13th, and they're up here.
And now Pascoda there, Zach York, the gap between those, it's actually the closest battle on track, but there's about 5 car length separation between those two. And, if we continue to look through the field here at drivers that have just done a tremendous job today, Ty McWhirter there in the 96, we haven't talked about him really a whole lot today, but coming off a win a couple weeks ago from Michigan. He also ran well last week at Sonoma. He's been very consistent this season, and McWhirter coming into this race right now, obviously up inside the playoffs with his victory. I mean, this is a lot of momentum for a driver that's made a limited number of starts. I mean, this is only his 4th start of the season.
Yeah, Ty this race kind of just kept his head down and just was running his race. Not really worried about trying to make a challenge for a first place win or battling up with then top 3 drivers of Reed, Hogan, and Hall. But I mean, he's had the challenges here and there with Zach York at the end of these runs, but everywhere else has been pretty good.
You see Chris Hansen and the 20 behind him. Right now, 11th is where he's running. Another driver that has done a great job with the resources left to him is that 24 of Vincent Arthur. Right now, he is in 6th, 1 lap down. And, we're going to some other tracks here in the next couple of weeks, like Pocono next week, Indianapolis to follow, Kentucky. And I see so many names that are down there below the cut line that I can very easily see also jump their way up into the playoffs with a win. Arthur is one of those guys. Pascoda, Tyler Sifford, who we thought was going to be a contender today, got early issues on the very first lap of this race. Larry Reed was competitive today. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Dustin Hall, also outside the cutoff line right now, running in 2nd. I mean, big opportunities for a lot of these guys that we've been seeing the speed they've had week after week, where we could still see them here in the final regular season races win their way a spot into the playoff standings.
Yeah, there's still a lot of potential for that type of racing and chances for these guys to get. Some other drivers that we really haven't talked about. I mean, Ty Cole, I got to give him credit. He's out there kind of on the same boat as James. He had some early damage earlier on with those first couple of accidents. He's just been chugging along here, back in 12th place. A great run for himself.
Let's not forget Ty Cole, the incident that he was involved in. He was an innocent bystander. So I remember which car it was. I think it might have been the 14 of Carl Dodson. When he spun out, came right up into Ty Cole's racing lane. So sometimes it's all about being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but still going to be able to salvage a 12th place run. And out of 19 cars, that's about 7 points that you've picked up that you could have lost here today if you DNF'd.
Yeah, it shows that you got to continue doing and continue racing. I mean, James Love, first caution, he was all the way back in 19th on the pits. He was in there for over 11 minutes, able to get back out there. Now, yes, he's 21 laps down, but he's gained quite a lot of positions just due to continuous.
And Love is actually on pit road right now in the 88 machine. Ty Cole, I believe, is now on pit road as well. Looking here at the 21 of Justin Carey, we haven't talked much today about the Wood Brothers Racing Ford Mustang. He's going to be in the top 10, looks like, here in the finishing results. In that 10th position, a guy who comes into this race 9th in the point standings as far as the playoffs are concerned, and has a nice cushion between himself and that cutoff line. And, not really a contender for the win here today, but another guy that's out here just trying to run all the laps.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure more than half the cars that are out here running right now were a part of some type of accident in those first couple of cars. So, damage was on this 21 car earlier on. That's why he's 4 laps down, but still a great run. I mean, looking at the pace that he's putting down, it's just as fast that he's around. So, not a bad day for the 21 machine.
I'd say there maybe are 4, possibly 5 drivers that are running this race without any damage. Dustin Hall, I think, would be one. Ty McWhirter, Ryan Strunk, Chad Gunisman. I think those would basically be the ones, as well as Chris Hansen. I mean, even our race leader here, Boyd Hogan, if you look carefully around the right front of his machine, you can see he's got some damage there, which was when Tyler Sifford, or no, I'm sorry, no, it was Zach York, spun down into his race car, bringing out our second caution of the day. So even our race leader's got a little bit of battle scars here as he crosses the line. 5 laps to go here at Chicagoland. The gap between himself and Hall over 12 seconds.
Yeah, that gap became a lot bigger than I initially threw out. I mean, I threw out maybe 7 seconds, thinking that was a nice bubble zone. It just kept on growing more and more. It looked like Dustin Hall was getting stuck behind traffic, which enabled that gap to get so much bigger. But Boyd Hogan, it really worked out for him to stay out longer than everyone else. It just pit strategy came into play, and the 2 car is the one that won the day today on that raffle of luck in a way. But I mean, fuel strategy and tire strategy, it's a skill out there that's very difficult for a lot of people.
Really is. I mean, it's so easy for us to be able to be up here, look at the numbers, be able to make the calculations and the speculations. But when you're down there trying to do it all in your head and trying to drive a race car at the same time, it is a difficult task. And surprise, surprise, best battle here in the final 4 laps. It's going to be for 4th place again. Little bump there from Zach York to Joseph Piscota coming out of turn 2.
And they also had to drive around Ty Cole there to the lap traffic, getting a little bit more involved. I mean, yes, these guys are 1 lap down, but they're still racing extremely hard at the moment. It's crazy to look. We have only got 2 cars left on the lead lap, and that's Dustin Hall and Boyd Hogan.
Zach York already at this point in time looks like he would be locked into the playoffs through points. Piscota right now 136 points behind the cut line, so obviously a lot at stake for this 9 machine. That's why he is going to fight Zach York tooth and nail for this 4th finishing position.
They're racing so hard right now, trying to get on top of one another. Zach York, he just has to get side by side on the inside line. I think he'll be able to make the pass. Yes, he might try the outside, but the inside is where he needs to be with these. Push that car up in the 9 machine if he wants to make this pass be done.
You get a little help here from his teammate in the 20, Chris Hansen out of Joe Gibbs Racing. We'll see if Hansen's going to maybe try and hold the 9 up just a little bit, allow his teammate York to get up to the back bumper of the 9. Nope, Hansen's going to move low and get out of the way as Boyd Hogan is going to take the white flag here. 1 more lap to go at Chicagoland, looking for his 6th win of the season, and what would be his first win since 2 weeks ago back at the Kansas Speedway.
Yeah, this 2 machine's been just looking good and clean all day long. Had that one little rough patch, but he'll be getting it done here at Chicago.
And number 6 will pad him more playoff points. We're going to follow this battle for 4th here through 3 and 4. York drives it in deep, gets to the bumper, but then pushes up off the corner. Piscota is going to be able to hold him off and finish in 4th with York in 5th, but both drivers going to finish top 5 today behind Hogan, Dustin Hall, and Ty McWhirter. But Penske Racing's Boyd Hogan continues to build up the playoff points as he came into this race the number 1 seed. I also have been watching him after he was on that streak of wins. I think he had about 4 wins in a row at one point. He is climbing his way up in the overall stands as well. He wants those playoffs points as a regular season champion. He was 148 points back from Taylor Butcher Benjamin coming into tonight. Be interesting to see just how much that gap closes up here this evening, with Butcher Benjamin finishing back in the 9th position, as Boyd Hogan, he's done this a time or 2 this season, is going to burn it down in front of these Chicagoland fans.
Yeah, Boyd Hogan, I mean, he's getting so many wins here coming to the end of the season, and it's helping him out so much. Taylor Butcher Benjamin needs to have a couple of more good finishes to really set himself and really lock in the rest of this race.
Dustin Hall is going to finish 2nd place which is his second top 5 finish of the season. And, we saw Ford up there at the front in qualifying as we ended up having blue ovals on the inside and outside of the front row. And how about Ford finishing the job off tonight? 1 and 2 with McWhirter the highest Toyota and Piscota the highest finishing Chevrolet. Let's take a look here at the full finisher results from this evening's event. We gave you the top 5. Vincent Arthur, I'm still shocked that car was up to speed enough to be able to finish in the 6th position. Ryan Strunk back after about 3 weeks absence. He's going to finish in 7th. Gunnisman started on the pole. He'll finish in 8th. He'll gain a little bit on Taylor Butcher Benjamin for the points lead, but Benjamin finishes in 9th. And Justin Carey going to finish this race in the 10th position. Only 2 cars, Sam, finished this race on the lead lap.
It's crazy to see that, and honestly, we almost saw it yesterday with that race. If we continue staying green, it's just these long green flag runs. It kind of sets up the guys that are up front running so fast. They're soon to lap down.
And of course, the 2 early cautions, the second one really being a big one, involving about 7-8 drivers, played a huge part into the low number of drivers finishing on the lead lap, as well as quite a number of them were not up to speed after receiving their crash damage. But let's get some words here with some of our top 3 finishers, and let's start things off with Gaunt Brother Racing's Ty McWhirter, who we talked to in Victory Lane a couple of weeks ago back at Michigan. He finishes 3rd place here tonight, and Ty, a lot of momentum continues to go the right direction here for this 96 team. But you kind of seem to be the one guy out there in no man's land. Not a lot of people to be able to battle. So how did you keep things interesting in the car there when you were running 3rd?
Yeah, it really was a little tough to keep a motivation up there because we just didn't have anything for the 6th and the 2. But, I was a pretty good night overall. Can't really complain about a 3rd place finish. And, we'll prepare a little bit harder for next week.
Talk about those first couple of laps, because we had those 2 early cautions in the first 15 laps. A lot of drivers seemed to be getting really loose there on the entrance of turn 3. What was leading to that?
Yeah, I think some was the weather, and then I think people said the cars set up really free. I mean, it was super loose out there, and I can understand why those guys were kind of getting away from them because everybody was just super loose, and it's one of those things you just gotta kind of hang on to your car and just kind of watch out for some of those guys out there.
Yeah, Ty, you seem to just keep your head down, and you were just out there by yourself. It seemed like the real place you had to worry about was coming into the pits. How difficult was it coming in the pit?
Oh yeah, the pit lane here is really tough. You just kind of gotta. You don't really have a good marker on getting in, and you just kind of got to feel it out. And I think I almost went a little bit too hard in the first round to stop. So just kind of had to learn from my mistakes there and just back off a little bit.
Ty, looking to next week at Pocono, I've seen before, they say the NASCAR drivers actually say, road course drivers really like Pocono because approaching those corners is a lot like approaching corners at a road course. I've even actually seen that translate over to the iRacing sim, and we saw you run top 3 all day long last week at Sonoma. What kind of confidence does that give you knowing that we're heading to the Tricky Triangle next week?
Yeah, Pocono, it's kind of a tough track for me, but I think carrying a lot of momentum in there, I think that's absolutely going to help. And we're just going to prepare hard for it, and we're just going to see what happens.
Well, Ty McWhirter, already locked into the playoffs, continues to run consistently here today. He'll finish in the 3rd position tonight at Chicagoland. We're looking let you go do some shout-outs now, Ty.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Soda Guys, veterans of Foreign Wars, Shorbaz Racing Graphics, FSM Customs, and Abiding Love Memorial Urns.
It's Ty McWhirter. He brings the Gaunt Brothers Toyota Camry home P3 here this evening. Congrats on a great run. We look forward to talking to you next week at Pocono.
All right, thanks, guys.
And let's now bring in our 2nd place finisher, Dustin Hall, the only Roush Fenway Racing entry in tonight's field, and brings it home inside of the top 3 was where he ran all night long. He'll bring it home with a runner-up finish. And Dustin, we saw you try and shoot a little bit of short pitting strategy in there in the closing stages of this race. Was that really the only chance you had to try and wrestle this win away from the 2 of Hogan?
Oh, you know it. Yeah, he was hooked up.
We saw a lot of drivers early on struggle with the handling of their cars, having it set up probably for the long run, had it really loose. How did you have your car set up for the early run?
Yeah, I was dying for about 4 or 5 laps. Just gotta be real free to keep from burning the right front off. There's a lot of, um, I mean, you could see a lot of guys going through a lot of different swings throughout the race where they were just getting really tight or just really loose. And I think for the most part, after we got those 2 cautions out of the way, everybody did a pretty good job of handling the handling of these cars.
Yeah, Dustin, I mean, everyone was so off sequence because of how long the green flag runs were. How was it getting by some of those cars that were slower and maybe just avoiding cars that were running faster than you at times?
Oh man, it was tough sometimes. There's a certain bit of race etiquette that if you're 4 or 5 plus laps down, um, you never touch the race line, never touch the preferred line. You just stay out of the way. And there was dicey at times with guys not really adhering to that known rule. But hey, for these guys, I mean, for us all to be able to pull it together and run 140 laps without caution, that's uh that's definitely good change.
Dustin, obviously you've run only 4 races now. This has been your fourth start of the season. You came into this race 184 points behind the cut line, but a lot of momentum here with the second place run. We're going next week to another track that boasts long green flag runs in Pocono. What's your confidence level on being able to maybe try and point your way into the playoffs? Or do you feel that right now, as we get closer and closer to the end of the regular season, you're almost in a must-win situation to get yourself into the contention for that championship?
Yeah, I think we'll just keep on digging. My schedule is at the mercy of my kids. They're in their own sports, and that takes priority. So, I'll have to take a look at the schedule and see when what I can do to make a push here. It would be a lot of fun for sure.
Well, we saw you had a lot of speed there in qualifying. It translated to a lot of speed during the race. You bring it home in the runner-up position, and we're going to let you do some shout-outs now.
Yeah, first off, shout out to Boyd. Boyd's, he worked his tail off, and he's about as good as they come here at Chicago. The man's a rocket. 2 NIS wins under his belt. The guy's on fire. Like to shout out to my family, my my dad especially. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Love you. Um, and yeah, thanks to everybody for the support. And it's neat that they embrace it as much as I do. So thanks a lot to you guys for the broadcast and the admins for this for the league and putting this on.
That's Dustin Hall. He puts the Roush Fenway Racing Ford Mustang in second position here tonight, Chicagoland. Great run here tonight, and we look forward to talking next week at Pocono.
All right, man. Sounds good.
And let's get our race winner in here, Boyd Hogan. Sixth time that he goes to victory lane. It took him a couple of weeks to find victory lane again after a 2-week winless streak. But Boyd, I mean, let's first go back to that battle between yourself and the 32 of Larry Reed. Were you, for the moment, just kind of waiting to see what was happening before you made a move on him? Or was it what we kind of saw last night where drivers were talking about catching's one thing, but being able to make the pass on them was another?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, I caught him from pretty far back, so I'd used up quite a bit of tire trying to get there. And then the way it is when you get up tucked up behind somebody, it's nearly impossible to pass unless you're way quicker than somebody. So, but you know, it sucks for Larry that happened. I've got endless amounts of respect for that man. He's an incredible guy, and that was gonna be a hell of a race. And in my opinion, he kind of got he kind of got screwed over a little bit. I don't think he really gained any time. But understandably he's upset, and I wish we could have just raced it out to the end.
When we go back to that final round of green flag pit stops, you were leading the race. You had guys behind you like the 6 of Dustin Hall, the 96 of Ty McWhirter try and short pit there. Did that in any way play into when you eventually brought your car to pit road, or did you have a set number in your head?
Well, the way that kept gaining time, on fresher tires, I was gonna be. I figured I was gonna be all right. I wasn't sure really if I could have got back to Dustin though with waiting as long as I could have, or as long as I did. But glad I could.
Yeah, I mean, Boyd, on that last run there, you were you had to go 3 wide there to make a pass on the 9 and the 19. What was your mentality going into that type of a move?
Uh, well, I mean, I was hoping I could clear him before turn 3, and luckily did. I just didn't want to get jammed up and lose too much time because like I say, you use up a certain amount of tire and it becomes nearly impossible to pass. And Dustin and I being on such similar cars at such similar pace, it was it was time to go. That's all that was.
Well, obviously, with your 6th win on the season, you continue to rack up the playoff points here. You're getting closer and closer to maybe being able to get up there and battle it out for the regular season championship as well. But we're heading to Pocono next week. What's the mentality going to the Tricky Triangle?
Just bonus points. That's kind of all we're after at this point in the season. I'm not really sure if I really even have a chance at the regular season points championship. Having missed as many races as I did. So it's just trying to stack up as many playoff points as we can, and hopefully go get another one there.
The last time we saw you end a winless streak, you went on to win 4 races in a row. We'll wait and see if that's going to happen here again. But for now, Boyd, we'd like to do some shout-outs.
Yeah. First of all, I got to thank Jacob Shorba, obviously, for having putting the league on. Soda guys, Shorba's Racing Graphics, FSM Customs, everybody that kind of helps put the series on. You guys, obviously, for broadcasting. Alan Provenzano, he's the guy who did my paint. It's probably the nicest car in the field, and he does a killer job on all my stuff. So big shout out to him. My roommate Steven's birthday is tomorrow, so happy birthday to him. And obviously, thank Dustin Hall. We were kind of struggling a little bit on speed, just trying to find a little bit more long run, and we brainstormed a couple nights ago, trying to put something together, and we definitely executed on that. So thanks to everybody at Bobby Earnhardt's Legacy Esports, Slip Angle, everybody that has time into these cars every week. It's wouldn't be out here winning any races without those guys. So
Well, that's Boyd Hogan. He brings it home for a league-leading 6th time in victory lane here tonight at Chicagoland. Congrats on a great win. Go enjoy it, and we look forward to talking to you next week at Pocono.
sounds good. Thank you, guys.
So 160 laps in the books. Boyd Hogan takes the checkered flag. Sam, this kind of seemed to play an awful lot like last night's Grand National Series race. Maybe a little bit more drivers involved in the early cautions, but no doubt about it, a dominating performance there in the second half by Boyd Hogan.
Yeah, kind of the racing we were expecting here from Chicagoland with a little bit of cautions here and there in the beginning, let these guys get settled in, and then finish it off with a great green flag run at the end there. Overall, a Chicagoland race that we're kind of used to seeing, and a great run by Boyd Hogan.
I'm just going to quickly, I know we're going to touch a lot on this next week when we eventually get there, but we got Pocono next week. You and I have done Pocono twice. The first time, there were a lot of drivers having difficulty sliding around. A lot of cautions came out. But then the second race that we did, we saw them taking it 4 and 5 wide and making it work. I mean, what side of the spectrum do you think we're going to be seeing next week with these drivers, especially with it being an open setup league, these drivers being able to set up their cars to their comfort level?
It's always hard to say. I mean, I always go into Pocono thinking that it's going to be kind of a wreck fest. That it's always nice to have the driver shock me in a way of us actually having a great green flag run with hard racing, and it would be exciting to see good. These drivers, they need to figure out how to be a little bit more conservative at the beginning. It feels like we usually see a wreck here in the first lap because cars are just trying their best to push it as hard as they can at the start. You just got to be careful here at the start. Next week, you got to be careful.
Absolutely. And I mean, with the fact, as just said, it's open setup. I mean, how in the world do you set a car up to be able to tackle 3 corners, 3 different degrees of banking? That's going to be a wild one next week at Pocono. But our race is done here tonight from Chicagoland with Boyd Hogan, your victor here tonight. Thanks to everybody that tuned in this evening. Obviously, we're about an hour and a half away, but an early happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And hope that all the fathers out there have a great day. A happy Father's Day to my dad. We're going to be doing some stuff tomorrow, some special stuff with him. And so we're going to be looking forward to that. And as always, Sam, I appreciate you joining me here in the booth tonight.
Always a pleasure.
And thanks to everybody that tuned in. Next race, I believe that'll be taking place over here on the Flatout Racing Network's YouTube channel. We are going to be back with the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series at Pocono, following that up the following Saturday with the Soda Guys Cup Series at Pocono as well. Next time you'll see Flatout Racing Network doing a broadcast, we're going to be over on speed51.com on Monday. We'll be bringing you the Home Place Beer Company Series race from, I believe it's Richmond. We're also going to have the JoinAPS.com Cup Series on Wednesday night. I believe that is also going to be from Richmond, but I'm not 100% certain. So head on over there and check out the broadcast we're going to be having on speed51.com this week as well. But for Sam Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in this evening to another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.